The experiment should have been a failure. The wires were wrong, the setup was unstable, and the equipment looked like scrap metal pulled from a workshop floor. But on a summer morning in 1821, inside a small room at London's Royal Institution, something impossible happened. A wire began to spin endlessly around a magnet, as if alive, and the scientist watching it, Michael Faraday, realized he had stumbled into a discovery that would change the world more than any king, any empire, or any war. To understand why this moment mattered, you have to picture the world before electricity. Cities went dark the moment the sun set. Factories depended on coal, rivers, or wind. Communication moved no faster than a horse, and the idea of powering machines with invisible forces felt like alchemy. Faraday wasn't supposed to be the one trying to solve these mysteries. He was a bookbinder's apprentice with almost no formal education, a kid who taught himself science by reading the books he bound. But his obsession with experiments, dangerous, handmade, unpredictable experiments, made him one of the few people curious enough to poke at the unseen rules of nature. By 1820, scientists across Europe were fascinated by magnets and electricity, but no one understood their deeper connection. Researchers could see sparks, feel shocks, and measure strange forces, yet everything was still a puzzle. When Faraday learned that a Danish scientist had discovered that electricity could move a compass needle, he became obsessed. If electricity could influence a magnet, could it move it? Could it create motion? Could invisible forces turn into real mechanical power? Nobody knew. Some thought the idea was ridiculous. A few believed it was dangerous. But Faraday wasn't interested in theoretical arguments. He cared about what he could see with his own eyes. So using scrap wire, a magnet, and a cup of mercury, he built a strange device and passed an electric current through it. The wire suddenly began spinning around the magnet in a perfect circle, an endless loop of motion powered by nothing but electricity itself. This was the first electric motor in human history. Within minutes, Faraday realized the scale of what he'd just created. If electricity could generate motion, then motion could generate electricity. And if electricity could be produced on demand, it could be used to power anything. But at that moment, he had no plans to build a power grid, or light entire cities, or create the backbone of future computers. He simply wanted to understand nature's laws. What he didn't know was that his discovery would become the foundation for every generator, every transformer, every electromagnetic technology that powers the modern world. Still, the path forward wasn't smooth. Faraday was ridiculed by some scientists who considered him an outsider. Others dismissed his spinning wire as a parlor trick, but retention spike. Just a decade later, he built something far more important, a device that could create a continuous electrical current simply by moving a magnet through a coil of wire. This was the first electrical generator, the first heartbeat of the modern power system. Suddenly, the impossible became possible. With Faraday's principle, electricity could be produced cheaply, safely, and endlessly. Factories that once relied on water wheels could move anywhere. Communication lines could stretch across continents. Machines could shrink in size but grow in power. Even the simplest household tools, from fans to refrigerators, trace their origins back to the electromagnetic laws he discovered. But Faraday himself lived humbly, uninterested in wealth. When the British government asked him to help design lighthouses, he did it without asking for payment. When political leaders tried to give him knighthood, he declined. And when Queen Victoria offered him a luxurious home, he politely refused. He never patented any of his inventions. He never charged royalties. He believed knowledge belonged to everyone, not to him. The irony is that the world moved far faster than he imagined. By the late 1800s, power stations were rising in major cities. Electric streetcars replaced horses. Telegraph and telephone lines wrapped the globe. Light bulbs pierced the darkness. Engineers built larger and larger generators, each one stamped with the same physical principles Faraday discovered in that small room in 1821. Retention spike, even modern, wireless technology, from radio to Wi-Fi, rests on Faraday's laws of electromagnetic fields. His equations, simple, elegant, universal, mapped the invisible architecture that now runs through every building, every factory, every satellite, every smartphone. The digital age didn't begin in Silicon Valley. It began with a spinning wire. Yet Faraday never thought of himself as a genius. When students asked how he made his discoveries, he said he simply kept experimenting. But the truth is more dramatic. Faraday didn't just open a new scientific field. He bridged two worlds. He connected fire and lightning to gears and machines. He transformed forces people feared into tools people trusted. And he did it with no formal math training, using equipment that looked like it belonged in a garage. By the time he died in 1867, the world was already shifting under the weight of his discoveries. But his true legacy wouldn't be felt until decades later, when electrification spread globally. Entire industries were built on top of what he uncovered. Countless inventions, from generators to MRI machines, exist because of the physical laws he revealed. And in the end, the most incredible part is this. Michael Faraday never intended to change the world. He was simply a curious mind following a question no one else bothered to ask. But curiosity turned into discovery. Discovery turned into power, and power turned into the modern world. All because one wire started to spin.